So Islington Council is about to embark on, and has started to embark on, Shared Digital, which is combining the three technology departments of Camden, Islington and Haringey. And we have our new Chief Information and Digital Officer in place since November. And we're going through that process at the moment. So I'm in the architects team, and so one of the things we're looking at the moment is how do we look at merging three IT departments together, and what that means and how we might do that a bit better and more efficiently, because the goal is to save money, because Islington Council has had its grant from national government cut by 60% in the last 7 years, so we're trying to do the same with less than half the money we used to. And Camden and Haringey going through the same issues, so we're trying to see how we can work together on that. So the approach was just to look at open principles, open standard principles, which is a GDS departure, and looking at, we're going to be looking at Verify Local, but just this whole idea of how do we work with vendors, suppliers, how do we work with each other on ways in which we're not so tied into the same technologies again, and reduce our opportunities for doing things better because we're tied into either contracts or user journeys that are provided to us in one way, or a technology, or a middleware that's only allows us to do things in certain ways. So I won't go through all of those principles because you probably all know them and you can look those up. But the ones that I was interested in was around, user needs was, a core principle, interoperability, data exchange, and data ownership. And with the GDPR taking off the next year, then that's something that we're all interested in. So how is what we do in shared digital or local government different to how it's done in national? Well, basically it's pretty much the same issues. So we've got our different departments, planning, finance, with different systems that they're running on, but they all are connected up to the same either virtual environment or the same need for us to combine all of those together. So pretty much the similar circumstances in national government, the same sort of tensions and that you all know about. So, silo departments, separate infrastructure, and the need to save money. And as you know from GDS and gov.uk, when it comes to online, that proposes even more challenges, because for each of the service areas, it's not just their transactions and their systems, it's also their digital footprint outside. So, and they see their own digital footprint in their own kind of digital ecosystem. So while we might be providing a website or transactions, they also have social media going on, and promotional sites, and a service portal that links in with something else. So from their perspective, they're looking at their digital footprint in a very siloed way as well. But of course, the citizen isn't interacting with just solely that service. They're also interacting with the other service that's providing a similar digital footprint. So so that kind of is a challenge that you're familiar with from departments and other places. But I think it's also different for local government because of the identity that people have with place. So people see themselves as Islington residents or Camden residents. There's some blurring of that if you want to go to a park or you want to access sport. It's the same thing. If you're doing a planning application, it's the same process. But there is an identity of place going on there. And councillors, of course, who see that. So there isn't just one place that you can send people and say this is where everything happens. And then obviously if we're putting that across three councils, we've got the same thing going on with all of those three. But what we have is lots of opportunities with the three councils, because maybe some of these systems are the same or from the same supplier. So there's an opportunity to have the systems join up, but the departments won't be joined up because they're not merging. So there's a challenge there with stakeholders. And then the town hall, so kind of like the councillors will want to also make sure that they're delivering the right service for their residents. So if we were able to do repairs online, linking in with the same system, then that would be great, because then we're doing it across all three boroughs. but each of the councils will want that to look and feel slightly different, and the departments might have a different take on that. So that provides kind of further challenges for us. So in terms of the service design approach that we're taking with trying to look at that is, and again, this is very much following the way GDS things, is looking at maybe just our development principles and trying to get those shared across all the councils. So councils might be different, but they've got the same values, they've got the same goals for their residents. They want people to feel supported, and they want people to feel like they're getting a good service. So we're looking at how can we look at the principles across all the three councils and get some agreement on that, even if we can't agree on the technology, and even if we're further away at this stage from very specific standards around technology standards or things like that, we can get some kind of design principles agreed. Then the other way we're looking at this is the architectural approach, which is basically quite similar. So this is sort of the ideal technology diagram that we would kind of aspire to. So, you know, we've got all these systems in all the different councils, and it would be great if they were all a consolidation, shared stack, maybe in the cloud, shared maintenance, shared development, same management tools. But to get there, we can still look at development principles, a common approach, and a development life cycle. So we can still start saying, if your systems are different, you can still have the same approach to managing data. You can still have the same approach to security, the same interoperability between the systems, which brings us to the middle layer. So, you know, bringing in principles of, no, we don't want you to use direct queries to databases. What we want you to do is do them via web services or another interoperable tool that allows data to not be sent to different systems, but to be pulled out and then shared that way. So that, again, would be ideal, is that in this middle layer we're getting to repeatable, scalable, configurable shared APIs, shared solutions, and a shared resource. So suddenly our application landscape is all nice and neat and tidy. Never happen. But at least if the coding standards are the same and we take an API management approach around permissions and security, then we're all moving in the same direction. And so then when you come to an end of life of a particular product or a particular system, you've got more of an opportunity to move that out. And that fits in very much with the open standard principles of GDS. It's like getting us to a point that we can move things in and out if we need to. But then there's also some interesting opportunities around online specifically, because this is all the IT bit. It's, you know, are the town halls that different? Do they have different values, different priorities, or similar values or similar priorities? And although the individuals, the citizens who are, and the residents who are interacting, it may be that the town hall will perceive all of these people being different and there is an identification with place. But if they're doing things online and it's done really well and it's easy to use, then actually they don't really care that the blue one is Haringey and the green one is Islington and the red one is Camden. They just, you know, it looks kind of, as long as they can do what they want to do. So there's a lot of value here in pushing us towards this infrastructure and architecture through the user, because they kind of want the same thing. So then there's other things that we're looking at, which is, it would be great to do all of this, but we can't do all of it anytime quickly. But what we can do is starting, whether it's looking at the systems and making sure they're all working in the same way, or we're looking at the principles and the standards, is looking at the things that really, really are common. And so they're either could be common across the three councils, or they're also those areas where what you're doing online touches on them. So, you know, the GIS, which practically every form is using the LLPG lookup to get the exact property address or the place that you're reporting something. Payments and the providers of those, account management, identity management, obviously web content management, bit easier to switch in and out, and the transactions. So is there a way in which maybe we start looking at the principles and the best practices and guidelines around these, so that we're moving quicker to get to a point where maybe identity management is all hosted in the same place and you've got a single login, using Verify, hopefully, and the payment, same way, but kind of, again, preparing ourselves for that roadmap. So then, bringing the two together, anyone from whether they're service design or solution architecture or strategy or whatever, will probably have a different view on which way you're going to get where you need to go. Like, we just need to put everything on Microsoft Dynamics and Azure and in the cloud, and then everything will be all connected up. Or actually, the architects are going, everything needs to be interoperable. And then design is about shared standards and shared principles. But basically, if you can hit all four in the same way at different points, then you're all moving in the same direction. So the challenges, which are the same really for national government, same for private companies who buy another company out, but they're particularly difficult in local government because of these cuts and because of the lack of maybe certain skills. So one of the opportunities shared digital gives us is being able to have certain skills, let's say like a security expert across 3 councils, because not each council will be able to afford to have one each. So there are some kind of specific financial challenges, I think, that we face. So one of them is that the legacy piece, and this will be something I think you'll all come across when you're developing solutions, is that you'll have bespoke coded on the back of an envelope queries to and from databases, and when you suddenly have this great tool that's going to allow you to pull data in and out, you suddenly realize, well, actually it doesn't work because this whole spaghetti junction of coding is now, you can't pull a bit of it out, you have to pull the whole thing out and start again. An example of that for us was our GIS system, which queries the Oracle database directly. So then if you want to use any kind of middleware like GeoServer and those sorts of functions, you can't, because we don't actually have that in place. So suddenly, just to do something simple like bring the data out of the Oracle database requires a whole new layer of middleware, which is going to cost like 100 grand of someone's time to put in place. So we've got a lot of those sorts of issues, which is why those principles and standards being brought in now are become really important, so you don't have those problems in the future. And similarly, we've got real problems with existing suppliers. I mean, even today, I got an email. Well, there's one supplier who has a portal, and when I looked at the portal, it was left-hand navigation, very developer-led fields, very obviously just written by someone who codes. And I said, so is it responsive? And he said, oh, we're bringing that out in the end of the year. And they built it last year. You're like, really? That you haven't, and there's no pressure on them to do that. So they're providing masses of infrastructure and functions to the public sector across several councils, and there's no real collective pressure on them to actually give us better solutions. So there's a lot of that, and also some suppliers require you to pay per API. So for us, I think the legacy issues and the interoperability issues and the integration, that architectural roadmap and transition architecture is how we're going to try and solve that. But and the contract stuff has to be around the use of these open standard principles and procurement, and asking suppliers when they're coming in, how are they going to deliver those principles for us? So rather than constantly having to think of things as like detailed requirements and making sure you've got everything in there, saying we're user-led, how do you deliver that for us? And then it's up to them to come tell us how they're going to do that, and then we can score that. So I think that's probably it. So, okay, thanks very much.